Hello, everybody. Hey, listen, are you a man like myself that kind of feels like showing my feelings? That's not manly. Being emotional, that's not what a man does. Being able to express ourselves and really not understanding how to be able to do those things. I want to make sure that you're a part of this conversation. If you're a wife that's listening, make sure that you're listening as well, because this will be impactful and helpful to you and give you some insight on how to be able to help us as men to be able to walk in this. This is something that is a great conversation, and I do not want you to miss this at all. So listen, get ready. Let's tune in and let's dive into the conversation. Hello and welcome to the Focus on Greatness podcast. My name is Hiram, and on this platform, one of the things that we do is highlight ways where men can be able to experience greatness in their everyday lives. And today is going to be a topic that I believe is going to help us as men and us as people become and be great. I want you to do this before we dive into this conversation, before I bring on this extraordinary special guest that I have on with me today. I want you to do me a favor. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. Those that are listening, those that are watching this live, make sure that you want to subscribe either through Google, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, and the hundreds of other different platforms that they have out here, that you can be able to continue on these conversations and go back and listen and be able to grab some more tools as you're continuing on your journey. Do me a favor before we start. Make sure that you are sharing, you are liking, and that you are following. If you're watching this live on YouTube, or if you're watching this live on Facebook, make sure that you do this, because I want to get not only you to watch this, but get your friends, get your families out there, because these are helpful conversations that we all need to be able to hear, all need to be a part of this. So do me a favor. If you're in your car, just tap on the top of your steering wheel. If you're watching this live, make sure that you send some emojis, send some love, send some heart, and do me a favor and welcome my guest, Andy Grant. How you doing, sir?
Very good, Hiram. Nice to be here.
Do me a favor before we dive into this beautiful conversation that we're going to have. Kind of introduce yourself to the people so they can kind of know who you are, and then we'll kind of go more in depth in the conversation.
Great. Yeah, my name is Andy Grant. I'll start at the beginning. I'm a survivor of multiple suicide attempts. Just get that right out of the way. And on my journey of discovering that I'm actually meant to be alive, I did a lot of personal growth, spiritual growth, energy work on myself, and everything I discovered that literally saved my life. I discovered the beauty, the joy in being of service. So about 10 years ago, I started using everything I learned to save my life to use for others. So I've been an energy coach, an Akashic record reader, an author, a speaker, a suicide prevention activist for the last 10 years. About 5 years ago, I launched a podcast called Real Men Feel, because growing up as a sensitive, emotional kid, I thought that meant I'm not even a man.
Right.
So, a lot of people meet me now, and as the host of Real Men Feel, they're kind of surprised that, like, oh no, it's called that because I was afraid I was not a man.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. That's why I'm so glad to talk to you.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad to have you on. And for those that are going to be listening and watching, you can find his information, follow him, get tag into even with his podcast. I'll have all of that information is sitting in the description, and you can be able to be a part of this, because this is why I bring these type of people to this platform. Because I know they're going to bring something that is going to help us, help me, help you as we continue on our journey. Because the only thing we want to do, and I know you know this, we just want to be great. We want to be great in everything. People only look at sports or your jobs, but it's like, no, personally, in my personal life, I want to learn how to be able to be great in what I do. And so I'm grateful that you're here. I really am. So let's do this. Tell me, where did it start? Let's go back a little. Where did this journey, or I would even say per se, before the transition of where we are today and where, kind of this progression, where did this all begin for you?
So the pain began, my parents got married when they were very young. They got divorced quickly. They were divorced by the time I was 5 years old. I don't have any conscious memories of a family.
Right.
And
Wow.
at about that same, so my dad was an alcoholic, battled bipolar disease. He was having multiple affairs. And at the same time, my parents split up very angrily, very acrimonious. A next door neighbor began molesting me.
Wow.
And so I quickly decided that the world is not a safe place. I cannot trust men. And I thought if I told my mom, I thought I'd get in trouble. I thought I'd be the next man kicked out of my home.
Wow.
So I really just young age decided not safe, can't trust anybody. I'm on my own. I really began to be withdrawn, and I was an only child. So there was no one to turn to. And I had suicidal thoughts from an extremely young age. I started making attempts at age 12. I remember knowing that I would die by my own hand as early as age 8.
Wow.
And one thing my dad often told me was high school, it's the best years of your life. And I was thought, well, then why would anyone go beyond that? So my most long-term plan, as a preteen was that I would live through high school and then I would die. Now, it's only in hindsight, only in my 30s did I realize my dad is 22 years old telling me that high school is the best part of his life. So yeah, there wasn't much, like he was in high school. He got his high school sweetheart pregnant and they had me. So life felt like a pretty abrupt halt for a young man at that point. But again, did not realize that then as my dad is trying to tell me how much he loves me, I'm hearing life is horrible, so that mindset was set in from a get-go. I was not raised with any sort of religion in my family, no sort of spirituality. I really just wanted my pain to stop. And I thought the only way to do that was to have life to stop.
Wow. Wow. Now, let me ask this because, sometimes we hear this like in reference to, surely when you're talking about people that are contemplating or dealing with either the depression portion, but more so dealing with the suicidal aspect of it. Sometimes they say, oh, people are doing that because they're trying to gain attention, and that's the per se, they'll put it in this bubble. That's the only reason or why they're trying to do that. Now, was that your scenario? Were you trying to get the attention or like you stated, or was it just the aspect of, I'm just trying to get away from the pain, of it? Because this is, in my mind, this is the only way it will resolve the issue of my pain.
Yeah. And I often call suicide is often called a cry for help as well as attention. And I always say well, if in what other area of life does someone cry for help and we just say, oh, it's just a cry for help? Right. The person drowning in a burning fire, they're calling for help. They're calling for attention.
Right.
The answer then. So I never get, well, why is suicide different? Why is attention seem as a bad thing? But what I wanted was love. And I did not love myself. Again, I thought the world was not safe. So and again, not realizing this as a child, this is after years of work. But no, I was not a person to make notes. When my first attempt surprised everybody, I was an excellent student. I was just naturally good in school, which is another thing that made me, get in trouble and get picked on. I was a heavy kid. So it felt like everything was against me. So I was like, I'm gonna take my ball and go home. Like I've had enough. I really felt like I was a quitter. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that quitter was life. What was God, was my guardian keeping me alive. All the times I made a plan and, I didn't go through with it. Or there were all sorts of nights in high school. I would, rev my car against a brick wall and then turn away at the last minute. And I thought that was weakness, but it was really my strength.
Now, when did it shift for you? Like, when did you say, okay, I don't want to go down that tunnel or down that lane anymore? When did that shift for you in your life?
It's funny. I say I was good in school, but I was a slow learner when it came to that this path was not good for me and it's not good for anyone. So I don't recommend following my model here, but it was after, I think, my 5th suicide attempt. And I only counted attempts that got me injured enough that I ended up in a hospital. I don't count the things that nobody even realized or
Right.
But I had made yet another attempt, and I attempted via a means that already had not worked. So like I'm like, why am I doing? I didn't know I was doing it anymore. So it's
Right.
like I wanted help. I didn't know there was any help except trying to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've done it again. And I think I was like 19 years old. I give up on this. It's not working. I go inside the house. I'm alone at home. I curl up in the fetal position and I'm just sobbing, sobbing, big, ugly, horrible, bad acting sobs.
Right.
And I'm realizing I'm not good at living. I'm not good at dying. There's got to be a better way. And this is my dark night of the soul. And it might be the first time I prayed. I begged God to show me why am I here? And I literally heard this different voice inside my head, the voice that wasn't just, you suck, Andy, die. You're worthless. It was not that voice. It was, there is a better way. And your willingness to share this way will help you climb out of this.
Yeah.
So it was the first time I was willing to get help. People had tried to help me all the time, and I would lie and just tell people what they wanted to hear.
Right.
Counselors would see me in pain. I would just deny it, cover it up, act like a man. I don't need any help. Everything's fine. Meanwhile, I wish I was dead. So everything was not fine. As an adult, I find that silence kills men. So it wasn't until I was willing to make some noise, until I was willing to get attention, not by dying, but by saying how pained my living was and being willing to share that and get help. So that's what opened me up to knowing that I was more than just this meat suit. Like doctors had told me this was all a chemical imbalance, and that did not give me hope. That just meant this is how you'll always be. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But realizing that I'm more than the meat suit, that there's more to me, that I had this spiritual essence and I had this experience of that. That was the first step on saving my life and allowing me to speak up and help positively impact other lives too. Yeah. Which you talk about this a lot, service. Like no one told me that being of service felt good.
Right.
So I tell guys, like, be selfish. They're like, selfishness is overrated. Or underrated. It's not appreciated. But when a healthy man values self-love, he discovers that being of service to others, helping others, sharing your story, helping others through their pain and troubles, like, it feels good.
Right. No, it does.
That's the kind of selfishness I encourage more people to jump into.
Right. Yeah. I love this. I love this. You made a statement and I was like, man, that's a good statement. So I know personally I'm gonna have to go back because I want to listen and hear that again. But you made a statement and you said silence kills men. And I love that the mindset of it behind it was this aspect, like you said, I'm not just meat and muscle. I'm not just strength. I'm more to this. But as long as I stay silent, this is going to die. This is not even useful as long as I'm silent. So let me ask, when you first actually stopped being silent and now you started to actually express, I want to ask on twofold. One, how did you feel? But then how did that affect the people that were around you when you no longer were silent?
So speaking up at first was terrifying. Sometimes it still is terrifying.
Right.
But I own that. When I first did public videos and talked about trying to die and talked about being molested as a kid, I was terrified of the comments and, the pain and the bullies and the trolls. And I really, I dreaded it. It kept me quiet for a long time, even after realizing being quiet's not the answer.
Right.
Fear kept me quiet then.
Wow.
But the more I found over and over that the more I openly and authentically share myself, nothing but positive energy, experiences, and love comes back to me. Time and time again.
Wow.
I think it's often the case, certainly with someone that's dealt with depression and suicide. Like, if I share my story, if I can save one life, it's all worth it. It's almost become a cliche to say that. And I said that. And that first experience happened fast. I remember the first public comment and the first, I still get emails and they've been going on for 15 years. I don't know why this video popped up. I wasn't looking for anything, but you really, you made me decide to stay.
Mm.
And I still remember the first time I met a stranger who recognized me from a YouTube video and hugged me and said, I'm alive because your video popped up in front of me one day.
Wow.
I was like, yeah. And so that wow is, that's why that's life. That's worth living for, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that is truly worth living for. And for those that are listening, as well as those that are watching, I want you to be able to recognize that there is power not only in your voice, but even from what I'm hearing from you, there's power in your experience.
Oh, yeah.
Your experience, either positive or negative, when we are no longer silent about those things, is going to help somebody. It becomes the best ripple effect that we can be able to see in our lives. And so I wanted to ask that because sometimes, and I'm glad that you made that statement, but sometimes what happens is in that first initial time frame of saying, okay, now today I'm going to actually speak. I'm going to open my mouth and say, this is how I felt, or this is how this made me feel, or this is what my experience was. We don't want to do it again because of the fear, because it doesn't feel comfortable doing this. So for you, what made it eventually, I guess in some sense, what made that start feeling comfortable to be able to be expressive and no longer silent?
It goes back to that epiphany night, realizing, proving to myself time and time again that I wasn't good at living or dying.
Right. Right.
So it's almost like George Costanza in Seinfeld. I'm bad at decisions. I'll do everything the opposite. So
right.
I've learned that what I'm afraid of, my fear keeps me stuck. Fear keeps me in that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And my old comfort zone was being depressed and miserable. So a comfort zone doesn't necessarily feel good. It's just what you're used to.
Yeah. Wow.
Fear, instead of keeping me in there, now I see fear as a welcome sign. Like fear is, this is what you need to do next, Andy.
Right.
And enough times of trusting that and having the payoff, having a good result on the other side of that fear, I know that to be true for me, and I believe it to be true for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Now, in your journey and your process, kind of getting to a little bit of where I would say kind of where you are now, how now have you been able to see the impact of how allowing or helping men to understand this process of not being silent? How have you seen now that ripple effect or that impact in men's lives?
Wow. Proudly countless ways. I can remember the first time I spoke to a military audience. I was telling my story and I had tears coming down my face, talking about the pain I was in and thinking I didn't belong here. And soldiers came up after that and shook my hand and said, you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. I can't believe that. I'm like, what do you mean? And so they're more, they'll go into battle. They'll risk their lives. They'll lose comrades. And they were all terrified of anyone seeing them cry.
Wow.
And that was like, what? That's this distorted belief of masculinity that I'm speaking up and I'm going against and helping guys realize, yeah, if it doesn't feel good, maybe it isn't doing you good.
Right. Man, that is good. I think one of the things and one of the reasons why, being honest, Andy, that listening or looking at your story and going through and just looking at all the things that you're doing, one of the things that drew me was I realized, even for myself, I was raised by a single mother, and my parents divorced when I was a baby, so I don't even, like you said, I have no recollection of what that looked like. But because I was this single, this only child, a lot of mine was I became very, insecure, and I had a lot of I would rather be in a corner somewhere than sitting in public, that type of thing. But over the years, I realized that I was never taught to speak. So when I felt things, either if it was anger or if it was sadness or if it would I didn't know how to express it. And I would just hold it and bottle it all in. And so when I saw your story, I said, this is something that men need to hear, because the definition of what men is, or what a man looks like, the definition is not included on a man speaks, or that a man is emotional. It's he's the security, he's the strong, he's the da da da. And so I said, no, this part has to be a part of this conversation when it comes to the defining of a man, because if not, this is why we're losing a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because we're just hoarding it in.
Yeah. Before we're men, we're human beings. All human beings have emotions.
Yeah.
They're not some emotions that are meant for women and some are meant for men. That is societal, wrong-headed thinking and teachings, and passed on with the best of intentions.
Right.
But
yeah.
I believe that mindset was created when men were dying at age 35. 40 was old age. So
right.
you had one career, you had one relationship, you had one thing for the rest of your days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had generations of going beyond that, and we've had generations of men struggling with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quiet lives of desperation. That's what I see in the stony, silent, stoic man.
Yeah.
I have talked to Vietnam vets, age 82, in tears, talking about something they witnessed. And I've hugged these men and let it out. And then they tell me, I've never told that story before. I'm like, you've been carrying that pain this long?
Wow.
And I recently had a coaching client, 71 years old, never had his father say, I love you. And it's bothered him all his life. This man grows his entire experience growing up feeling unloved. And if we believe we can't risk sharing that pain.
Yeah.
And it's all about, men put a big priority on respect. We need to be respected by our peers. We need to be welcomed in this community of men.
Right.
And we think it's like this, it's by being this way. That's and like, no,
right.
We can, that first brave guy that says, I feel horrible right now. I feel this great sadness right now. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what to do about it.
Right.
Those are the brave men, and men naturally want to support each other. So when you're in a safe space, when you have actual friends, when you have a community, those guys will listen and share something else back.
Yeah.
That's I found this competitive nature of men. It can work so well to our advantage when it comes time to share.
Yeah.
Because I lead men's groups, and that first brave guy that speaks up gives everyone else permission to go like, I felt that too. And I know that pain, and I'm feeling that right now. And it opens new doors for connection and community based on our authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let me for the man that's probably listening now, just say you have a man that, again, just even the storylines that you've already shared, there's a man that has some form of experience in their life, negative experience or something that they've had in their life that they've been holding in for years. What would you say to that person in reference to their first step that they need to do to now start this process?
Be willing to feel. Stop deciding that it's wrong. So, you just have the idea that maybe all of my judgments are wrong, right? Just that willingness. There's an old saying that I love, but I used to hate it. You can be right or you can be happy.
Wow.
I think a lot of men are taught that it's important to be right.
Yeah.
Right. One of the oldest jokes about men, we won't stop and ask for directions. I don't know. I know where I'm going, honey. Just let me, I'll get there. Don't worry about it. Right? Or instructions that come, you're going to build something from IKEA or something, and I don't need his instructions. I'm a man. I can figure this out. And it's just this act. It's this false bravado. But when we're willing to ask for help, when we're willing to be wrong, when we're willing to be happy, it's this masculinity is rigid.
Yeah.
And our willingness to be wrong. Like I always say, the only definition of masculinity that matters is yours. And if yours doesn't feel good, redefine it.
Wow.
I find men like me and you, raised by single moms, I was always told, like, what a good boy. I don't have to tell Andy anything. He's just such a good boy. He's so well behaved. He knows it's like he can read my mind, my mom would say.
Right.
And we grow up thinking we can do that, and we try to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't ask the women in my life, what's wrong? What can I do? Have I upset you? I try to just stay quiet and read their minds.
Right.
Doesn't work.
No.
It might work with your mom. You can be so connected to your mom and know when she's upset, but then we think that's how all relationships work. And it's how all relationships work to our detriment, to failed relationships, really, in my experience.
Yeah. No, and that's really, I think, I remember, I think for me, I've been blessed and I got two sons. And so, with me, I wasn't, surely in the beginning of my marriage, I was not a communicator at all. Surely when it's talking about expressing feelings, it was none at all, you know, and, I noticed how, like you said, that's not working for me. I cannot continue, because then it became almost like you're doing a rat race, because now you're in your own mind. You're not asking help. You're not asking what does your spouse need, and, you know, all those things. So now you're literally just running, and you're burning your own self internally out because you just won't ask, hey, hun, what do you need? Or, hey, babe, this is overwhelming me a little bit. Or, you know, hey, I really don't feel comfortable doing this at this time. You know, it's just those simple forms of communication. And so for me now, it's like I'm trying to train young boys to be communicative. How do you feel? And I see the same thing in them automatically. It's like, I'm good. I'll be okay. It's like, no, you're hurting. Tears coming down their face. I'm okay, Dad. It's like, it's training that same thing. And so, would you recommend for a man cause I did this was, I don't want to say this personally my breaking point, but it was a help for me. My first time trying to express something was I went I don't want to say very old school, but I went to another move, and I actually wrote down my feelings in a letter to my wife and said, babe, this is how I feel. This is my, you know, and I allowed her to be able to then see, even though it was on paper and I didn't say it verbally, but it was a way of expressing that. Would you use that as also as a way of starting point of being able to get that started?
For sure. Every emotion will be expressed. If we bury them all, they'll be expressed in negative, disruptive ways.
Okay.
So a common thing I hear, we ask about men how they're feeling, like, well, I think I feel this. And like, or honey, do you love me? I think I do. Like, we try to think our emotions aren't in our brains, right? You know, to feel it. So that's if you notice yourself, your friends saying, I think, and it's talking about feelings, like, well, that's one sign it's not working. Yeah. But different counselors and therapists had recommended journaling and gratitude journaling to me forever. And I was like, nonsense. Like I had this vision of, you know, a little 12-year-old girl with some little My Little Pony Princess Diary. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Come on.
Right.
But once I started and felt benefit from it, I've maintained a daily journal for, I think, 17 years.
Wow.
So we torture ourselves by keeping our thoughts to ourselves.
Yeah.
That ruminating thought, that I'm not good enough, that I can't do anything right, whatever it is, putting pen to paper, screaming it out loud, giving a great workout in, all of those are ways to express.
Yeah.
And you know, I have an online class on the power of gratitude, and there's scientific principles behind writing a letter of gratitude to someone and how much benefit you get, and the person receiving it gets this tremendous boost of serotonin as well.
Yeah.
So you did a great first step, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I'm for the people that are listening, you might be driving in your car. You might be on your way to work. You might be taking a stroll. And while you're listening to this conversation, you might be thinking of moments and feelings and things that you wish you would have expressed and stuff that you feel like you still need to express at this point. Take advantage of what this conversation is doing. It's helping you to give you some tools, not only in do I need to do it one specific way, but it's showing you it's the process of getting it out of you. Either that's through writing it on paper, if that's communicating and verbally to that person. There has to be a way that you start this process of starting to learn how to get the emotions and the expressions out of you. I know for me, and I'm guessing for a lot of men, To be emotional is equal to being weak. It doesn't go with the picture of what masculinity looks like. But for those that are listening, and we're going to continue this conversation because it's very, very good. But for those that are listening, I need you to understand it's more weak to hold it in than it is to express. Because not only does holding it in hurt you, whatever, like you just said, it's going to express itself one way or another. So it's either going to express itself now because you've been holding it in. It's going to express itself through anger. It's going to express itself from you withdrawing from everybody. One way or another, it's going to express itself. But what we're trying to get everyone to understand and to see is that you communicating is a very strong tool that you have just by expressing your feelings, just by hugging your child, just by telling your son, I love you, or telling your daughter, I think what you did for me was beautiful. Like just something as simple as, babe, when you brought me that gift the other day and I didn't ask for it, this is how it made me feel. Those are simple things that we do every day. And those are not forms of weakness, but those are forms of strengths.
Yeah. I find over and over that authenticity, vulnerability, and compassion are superpowers that most men don't take advantage of. You know, if we want to talk about what's weak, like really, what's weaker than me being afraid to say something because I'm concerned of how you'll judge it.
Right.
Like that's the biggest weakness. And men, we are all so driven by fear.
Yeah.
Fear of being disrespected, fear of being shut out, fear of being ostracized, fear of being rejected, fear of being seen as weak, fear of being judged. And if we're willing to acknowledge that fear, it lets you see everything else as the illusion.
Yeah.
And that the strongest thing you can do is, Hiram, I'm feeling great right now. Hiram, I love you, man. Or Hiram, you really upset me the other day. Like whatever it is. Like emotions are meant to be felt in the moment. And when you feel it in the moment, they pass quicker, they pass easier. It's when we bury and stuff and deny. That's what leads to stress and disease and horrible ways that we treat ourselves and addictions and just every trouble that a man can get into, I find, is originally based in not sharing some emotional issue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's truthful. That's very, very truthful. Do me a favor, because I want people to not only hear these tools that are helping them, but for those men that say, I would love to get your help. I would love to connect with you and to be able to get the type of help that I need so I can start this process. Let them tell the audience how they can connect with you, and something about what does your program does in helping men to get to these places and to these points.
Cool. So there is no other human being on the planet with my training. I've done all these different variety of things, and I've been the first graduating class of different year-long programs. That's why I can say there's no one that has done the combination. So I combine psychology and spirituality and energy and masculinity and archetypes. But the best way to discover all of that is at my website, theandygrant.com. If you're interested in talking to me, I have what I call clarity calls. They're free. They're no obligation. I love to talk to guys, and I'll ask you a lot of questions that you probably have never been asked. And I give you the space to feel what your answers might be. And then I see, is there a class? Is there a book? Is there a program? Is it working with me? What would serve you the most?
Yeah.
And another easy thing to do, Real Men Feel has been going on for 5.5 years. I think I'm up to episode number 257.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. There are some episodes where it's me alone and I'm sobbing. I've done shows from the lows of depression because I just had this thing, like somehow I'm like, do I dare share myself from here? And I got a yes. I'm like, all right. But, we cover so many horrible aspects of life, but in a lighthearted, let's deal with it, let's move through it kind of a way.
Yeah.
I hear from lots of my male listeners get turned on to the show by their wives and girlfriends.
Wow.
Because Like, yeah, it was not good marketing on my part. Like, men are not searching, how can I feel more? Like, that's not a big niche. Like, people are not looking for this, but it helps. It's beneficial. So,
Yeah.
you know, those are two free things available to everybody. But it's also, be willing to be wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I made fun of the journaling. I made fun of gratitude. I made fun of positive affirmations. I made fun of everything, thought everything was nonsense. And now I do it on a daily basis. And I can honestly say that I love myself and I love life.
Yeah.
At age 18, I would have thought I was crazy. I really thought happy people were crazy.
Oh God! You thought happy people were crazy?
Oh yeah, like I was so sure that I was better off dead. I believed everybody was. Like wow. I thought I could convince you. But, I thought happy people were like Ned Flanders and The Simpsons, just like fake, like Oakley Dokley. They were always just flat and just like perpetually happy. But
right,
life has ups and downs.
Yeah.
Ideally, we're like the best roller coaster. Like our highs are higher and our lows are higher.
Yeah.
So my worst day today, like how low I might feel, was like the best day I could imagine at age like 13.
Wow. Wow. Now, let me ask this question because when in the intro of our conversation, you talked about the dynamics in reference to your parents, where both of them are. Has your transformation transformed or impacted your parents' lives?
For sure. Again, it took my parents have both become more spiritual. My dad passed away 4 years ago, but we were able to talk about things and heal. And one thing I always knew I could talk about anything, but the catch-22 with parents, well, of course my mom loves me. It's my mom.
Right.
And then anytime, but there's a fight. Oh, even my mom hates me. So it's just not enough somehow. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I've had friends that I've had since like junior high that will like tell me like it's amazing to watch you, Andy. We really thought you were gonna be gone. Some people have the experience of they make an attempt in their life and they immediately like they see the light like, oh, I know I'll never do that again.
Right.
That was not my experience. Multiple times I would wake up in an emergency room and I would be furious that I was still alive.
Wow.
And that's why I'm very careful to say that I believed I wanted to die. I thought I was better off dead because I was wrong.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that willingness to be wrong, that notion of I'd rather be happy than be right, that's freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to tell you and say this is I'm thankful that you didn't do it. Because you are impacting and saving so many lives as a result of it. And I would not be able to have this great conversation with you, and through all the experiences that you have if you would have done it. And so I also want to use that also as an encouragement to someone that is listening. It might be hard. You might feel like, life sucks. No one paying attention to me. No one loves me. There's no reason to stay here. But just like Andy's life, he was able to get his transition and continue to push on to now his life and his experience is helping more people than I believe. And again, we haven't had this portion of the conversation, but I believe it's probably helping more people than you could even imagine.
Yeah. True. When I was a kid, the only place anybody mentioned suicide was in the mental hospital, which made it seem even crazier that I did have these thoughts, let alone the attempt.
Right.
But suicidal thoughts are horribly, sadly common.
Yeah, it is.
What will kill you is not speaking about it. What can save your life is breaking that silence.
Wow. I'll say this and then we'll transition, but I remember mine because I've had situations and depression, as well in reference to as a young child. But I remember when it went to my extreme was more in my adult life. to the point where I was calculating, this is how this is going to go. This is what I'm going to do, blah, 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 you know, all of those things. But I did exactly what you said. I found someone that I can express it to and say, this is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And this is the thing that I have decided is the resolve to that issue. But because I had the conversation and because I was able to get it out and because I was able to cry it out, and all of those things, I was able to make it through it. And so I connect with the statement and the conversation that you just made.
It's the saying is a good cry because it is.
Right.
Right. There's no, I've never grown up here and like, oh, I had a bad cry. No, it's a good cry because it serves you. Like it can, to this distorted sense of what it means to be a man is denying our emotions, denying our physical ability to make tears. Like those aren't mistakes.
Right.
Like, we're designed to do this.
Yes, we are designed to do this. So I want to ask this, and because this literally just popped in my mind, and then I'll ask you another question, but I want to ask you to do this for me. Can you redefine for us what a man is?
A man is whatever I do, right? I'm a man. Whatever I do is manly.
Right.
It's really that simple. So I'm a man talking to another man. It's not like I'm this type of man or I'm an alpha man. That's like, no, men. I'm a loving, grounded, present human being. I care about others. Again, the definition of masculinity that matters is the one that feels good to you, the one that feels good to me.
Yeah.
We weren't made in a factory.
No.
You know, there's talk about we living in a man box, but I did not come pre-assembled. No one opened a man box to get me out of it. You know, that's our job. We got to get out of this box that ties us down and gives us these labels.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I need people to hear that you being you is manly.
Yeah. It really can be no other way. That's the definition.
Right. So
what's a man? Look in the mirror.
Right. So I wanted to make sure that you gave that definition because you cannot define what a man is to you based upon what you saw as a man.
Right.
What was what that man did in his life, you know, surely when you're talking about looking at your grandfather, you know, that was in a whole nother era, their lifestyle and totally different than what ours was, you know, that you cannot say, okay, that's what the man looks like. That's what I have to become.
Yeah. And if you're doing that, the people, your father, your grandfather, aunt, whoever, uncle, neighbor, whatever it is, are they happy? Were they happy? Are you following a role model into a role that you want anything to do with? Right? Not just because, oh, that's the closest man I see. That must be what all men are.
Right.
Because that's unfortunate. That's the trap that we can fall into. Right? Again, we live in an infinite universe. Right? We are evolving and changing. Our soul is growing and expanding. Right? I believe we are stepping more into our divinity each day if we are progressing forward. So what is a man? It's whatever we dare want it to be. And I think we've been thinking too small about what it is.
Right. No, and that's true. I do too. I think we have limited what a man could actually be. We have limited that. And so again, thank you so much. I want to do this because I ask everyone that comes on, every one of my guests, I ask this question, because I love to be able to hear, the definitions and from your point of view of what you believe that this is. And the question is, what's greatness to you?
Greatness to me is seeing or experiencing something that smashes through my beliefs of what's possible. Like it's something that inspires me to new levels. Like I didn't know anyone could do that. I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know something could be that beautiful, that moving. It breaks it. You know, it's that glass ceiling of whatever it is that subject or emotion or activity is about. That's what greatness means to me.
I love that. I love that definition. I love that definition. I want y'all to do me a favor again. Please show some love. Again, if you are walking, you can do this. I know people around you might look at you weird. Just put your hands together, clap, and just show some love and say thank you. Really, thank you, Andy, for coming on, sharing your story, but also sharing the tools and the help for so many people that are going through these different pieces. Again, this conversation, we're directing it per se towards men, but this is really across the board, because there are women that don't communicate as well, just like there are men that don't. And so this conversation, I believe, is helpful to anyone that is taking the time to listen to this and really examine you while you listen to this conversation. Throughout this conversation, as we've been talking, every time you're talking, I'm like, okay, I'm not expressing here. I need to go back and make some adjustments, because again, this is a part of growth. Like you said, as we continue to go and progress forward, we're walking more and more and more to our destiny. And into this divinity of life that we have. So for those, again, that want to be able to hear more about Andy Grant, as well as Real Men Feel, you want to make sure that you tag in not only to his social media, but go onto his website, tag in and make the phone call, connect with him, get the help that is needed so that you as a person can become greater and better every single day. He has so many different things and avenues of where he can be able to help you. And so take advantage of those opportunities and things that he has so that we can all become and be the person that we're supposed to and destined to be. So again, I say thank you, sir, for coming on. Thank you for being a part. I love this.
Thanks for helping me make today great.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I pray that this conversation was impactful to you in some form of way. What I want to make sure is that not only are you hearing and learning this information, but that you're taking the time to apply something, some nugget, some piece that you took from this conversation that you can say, I can apply this for my life to be better. I want you to continue to be with me, and make sure that you're with me every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I love you all, and I'll talk to you next time right here on the Focus on Greatness family. Bye-bye.